Is the Superfly 9 here any good? Or did Nike take things too far with the Zoom Air unit in the sole and mess things up? Well, today I'll tell you why I might like this boot more than the Superfly 8, and of course go over what the Superfly 9 does well and also not so well to hopefully help you decide whether you should buy a pair or not. I'm JayMike, and this is my review of the Nike Mercurial Superfly 9. Thing on the Superfly 9 and Vapor 15 is the Zoom Air bag in the tooling, but I'll get to that a bit later because in the process of making the boots just a few grams lighter, Nike have also upgraded the upper, which has now taken strong inspiration from Roman sandals. Yeah, Roman sandals. I know it sounds weird, but hear me out. Because the new Vapor Plus upper here has an integrated speed case that's built around the idea of eliminating excessive movement inside the boot, but still allowing the material to be flexible so you can twist and turn. And after doing a lot of research, Nike found out that the way Roman sandals are constructed, they fixate both the midfoot and the heel in the places where you exert the most force when you put your foot down to change direction, but then leave it flexible by having cutouts in places where you don't. They were clever, the Romans. And guys, let's be honest, we've seen this construction so many times before, claiming to offer better or even perfect lockdown, but this one actually works really well, giving me a little less rollover and movement inside of the boot when you put your foot down, change direction, or start to accelerate. And somehow it felt like the boot was a bit more in tune with my foot and just that tad bit more responsive, as surprising as it sounds. Now, I know that it might not physically make you that much faster on the pitch, but it feels that way, and that's a mental benefit that I really like. Because the rest of the Vapor upper is, and especially gets, super soft after a few wears, the Superfly 9 just had me at hello from the first wear. Because it's got this really nice and rather snug fit that never feels restrictive, as if the boot's highest purpose is to make you feel confident without ever really feeling the boot in a restrictive way. Maybe it's also got to do with that the upper is thin, it is soft, but it also feels rich and a bit more plush, like the Superfly 7, compared to the slightly more naked synthetic feel of the Superfly 8. But if you worn any of the newer generations of the Mercurial, the shape will be familiar, because it's still relatively friendly towards at least most foot shapes. And while it won't accommodate the widest or craziest flat feet absolutely perfectly, anything from a narrow to a wide-ish foot should feel really good and at home in these, because there is a little bit of extra width in the midfoot. Size-wise, I went with my usual size US 7, Europe 40, so I went true to size, and the fit was spot on. And honestly, it's just hard not to like the fit in these. It feels really good. But then there's Zoom Air, which is this innovative AirPod that's integrated into the sole itself. It's 4.8mm thick and made to give you more spring in your step. And to be honest, it doesn't really feel like it does. I mean, don't get me wrong, Zoom Air is a great inclusion, but I'm not getting the sensation of being just propelled forward aggressively like it says on the box. Instead, you get this really comfortable and cushioned interaction with the sole, but also this really quick and squishy feedback when you push off. And it's very pleasant, but also really unique and kind of hard to describe. You have to experience it for yourself. The stud pattern is also new, and while it might not be as aggressive as the chevron bladed studs on the Superfly 8 in terms of this linear acceleration, there's still plenty of grip, especially when you make cuts or little changes of direction. So it might not be my favorite Mercurial stud pattern ever, but there's still plenty of, bite in the ground, and ultimately, that's what you want in a Mercurial. Speed is more than just going straight. Gotta weave through the fence. The touch is, well, it's like you expect. Thin, sharp, and precise. But one tiny element has changed things a bit. See, Nike have lined the inside of the upper with this thin, lofted mesh that somehow takes away the worst of the sting that you normally get with such a thin, barefoot-like feel. Don't get me wrong, it's still very close and sharp on the ball, but it just has a little bit less
edge compared to the Superfly 8. And whether that's a good or bad thing is up for you to decide. But I quite like it. Now, in terms of the touch itself, it has this engineered texture on the upper and just a bit of a tacky sensation on the ball as well, which I think is really nice when you dribble. And overall, the touch is just pretty straightforward and something that I feel you can trust.
But, not everything is perfect. So here are 4 annoying things that you also need to know about.
The first thing is the slightly higher and more roomy toe box, which definitely isn't a deal breaker, but it just feels a little less nimble and less crystal clear on the ball than the Superfly 8. Like, boxy. And while I like the Zoom Air unit, I don't think it's as revolutionary as Nike wants it to be, at least not in terms of pure explosiveness. So don't let that be the reason alone to get the boot. Oh, and then there's the fit, which is great. I really like it, but it's also a little bit roomy in the midfoot for me. So if you have a narrow foot, like myself, and want that skin-huggingly tight fit, like in the Mercurials of old, it's just something you should keep in mind, because it's a little wide. And that kind of leads me into my final point, because the more generally appealing the Mercurial gets, for instance with the wider fit, the less it also feels like those old, uncompromisingly raw, speed-oriented Mercurials that I know a lot of people love. And for me, it just loses some of the magic around the Mercurial.
With that said though, I do think that this Mercurial is doing so many things just right.
It's just such an easy boot to like, and while it has moved a bit more towards the middle and thus leaves a bit of space behind for more, should we say, raw and hardcore speed boots to come and fill out, I still think that despite a few niggles, this is one of the best boots on the market. And if you can take the Air Zoom unit for what it is, I really think you can enjoy the Superfly 9s or the Vapor 15, which is the same boot with just a lower sock. But what do you guys actually think of the new Mercurials? Let me know in the comment section right down below. And then remember that you can get both these and the Vapors in the link to Unisport right over there. And while you wait for your new boots to arrive, you can also go and learn some cool new skills in the playlist right down there. With those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.